Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here. This is just a very informal um, redo of what I did up in San Mateo at the New Living Expo. And that was the first time I really introduced the idea of precognition and health. I want to go through the same view graphs, but I'm actually going to do it differently here in that you know much of the material. And so what I really want to do is from the very beginning connect this with the way I see the connection with health. I gave a little background, and this is really in terms of the history of remote viewing in the military in particular, the best book I know on that subject by Schnabel. On the back cover, there's the discussion of the various names that were used for the programs ending in Stargate, which is the one that we all use, but it had names before. And then they make the statement, the U.S. government's remote viewers went on psychic spying missions around the world. Red minds even looked back in time and into the future. And it's the into the future and really getting what that means. They not only looked into the future, but the fact that they were able to receive information from future targets of all types, including information about people, that information came back to them, and so the future was indeed influencing them. It was a true entanglement both ways. And that's kind of key here, obviously for precognition, but even now, imagine if your future target might be you in a healthier state. So hold that thought, and I'm going to try to make that as real as possible with these. The fact that it's real, most of us here, most of the people that have come here and are listening to this already know this, but here's a quote from a major general. I never liked to get into debates with the skeptics because if you didn't believe that remote viewing was real, you hadn't done your homework. Now, most of us who have been around this for any length of time start seeing sessions like this, which we all know are totally blind in terms of the way we do our precognition. The targets online are not even chosen until after the transcript is generated. This happens to be a transcript that I was the judge for. In this case, it was independent judging. And so here are the two sketches that this viewer went down. When I first saw this one, I said, oh my God, that looks like the hand of God, and I sort of expected to see maybe something spiritual. What I saw and what he saw at feedback time was this. And when you look at this, this is obviously a really, really good match. I mean, here's a cloud in both cases, but even the hand, the fingers, when you look right here, you can actually see what looks very much like those fingers. And then the idea of energy, lightning strike, I mean, that certainly fits, even though this is a stem. That's certainly an excellent match. And again, notice that the viewer, to get this kind of information, was making a direct connection with, yes, the target, but also himself at feedback time. So the whole process of feedback was what allowed this to happen. In this case, the target was what we call a photo site. You can pick up more than just pictorial stuff. Lots and lots of examples. I showed, well, the fire hydrant. You know enough about ARV to know they need to be just good enough to distinguish it from another picture. And here, here, and here, these are, good enough like that, and really obviously quite good. The only one I showed, which was professional, just to give them the feeling on how good this can get, was this one, which was done by Joe McMonagle. And this just shows that this entanglement between the future and the present is really potentially very, very strong. Again, not 100%, but very, very strong. Also, again, here, very nice match with the balloons, and here you can see the blocks. But we're talking about consciousness and real life. Consciousness, as you've heard me say, is fundamental, but it's also fun. And this was one that Lorraine did, where you can see she obviously picked up the information from the target very nicely in terms of a sketch, but then she wrote here, people visit again and again, boasting how many times they've been, and though this is an achievement. Now you have to say this, you got to allow it to be fun. The fact that her subconscious would say that blind, not knowing what it was, at least in our normal way of thinking, she didn't know what it was. But obviously when she saw the feedback, somehow that led to all of this information, strong connections. I then went into ARV using the envelope approach rather than the online approach. I just talked about it. We didn't have time for them to do it. I told them we do options and future markets and then sports. And we do things with leverage. And made the point that the cue is really very simple. Forget how it happens, all of that. What you're supposed to do, what you're tasked to do, what your cue is simply to describe and sketch your coordinate feedback target. So I made clear that there's a target that's chosen, is blind to you. It happens to be associated with, might be a sports outcome, it might be anything, but the point is it is a target which you're going to get at your feedback session, and that's where the information comes from, and it's strongly entangled. Now, what do I believe makes that work? I believe it's two things. Intention, which we talk a lot about. You're intending to do just this, to describe and sketch the future, but you also need to get into a place where you expect that to happen. It's like the sun's going to come up tomorrow. You need to get into a place where there's no doubts. This word confidence comes up a lot. And yes, you just sort of get into a place where you know it's going to happen. Now, is that easy? That's the challenge. That is what you do by doing it over and over again and reinforcing it when you get the really good sessions. And when you don't, you learn something from it and move on. But in many ways, I see this part of the equation probably being what we grow into as we do this and get better and better at it. We get to where our expectation is stronger and stronger about having good matches. I don't think Joe McMonagle, when he does his stuff, expects anything but it. When he did that session, he just does it, expects it. And I once asked him, when he gets misses, he acknowledges that. He says, well, I'm human. But nevertheless, when you go into these things, this is what you do: intention, expectation, and then of course you pay attention to what's going on with your own consciousness. The beautiful part about this is it's always your own consciousness. We then did the judging. I gave them this example where there were two separate viewers, and I did finally come up with something other than that cartoon I've always used and you've seen a million times. But they're judges here, and the judges um, uh, become privy to what's in the two envelopes. And in this example, I just said there were these two. I happened to choose this one to make judging not as easy as actually it was here, because of all the spikiness here and the spikiness here. And then the spikes here. So I had them look at both of these, and they did in fact vote, actually all of them, for this one. You know, they noticed that, but this had the people. The only other thing this had that really was a good match, the other one was sort of a plant. So then we got back into what happened, which actually was 17 black, and there is your feedback session. And here's, again, the entanglement, which is, I don't know, the essence of this. I don't think most of us, and it's only actually, again, I have to tell you that I'm getting into this as much as I am now because of the connection with health. We just don't really appreciate how magnificent this entanglement is between our feedback session. And it's not what we call the target. In standard remote viewing, that is the way they do it. They do it and they talk about it as the target. I really would like us to get one level deeper than that, and think of this as being really a feedback session involving us and our consciousness. So it's not like a target. It's not like all that's out there is this guy who's doing his bungee jumping, you know, and there's a river below and two side edges here. There's you interacting with this target. It's your consciousness that is taking in that there's a bungee jumper there, you know, with this funny kind of rubbery bungee cord, I guess, and the water and all that. It's your personal self that is out there, that is conscious, that's alert, that's noticing this, and you have with you your transcript. And so you at feedback time are interacting with all of this and entangling that with the remote viewing session. So it's deeper than just, even though the cue is describe your feedback target, it's feedback session with you there. I mean, you have to really take it in. This is you doing this here, and it's you doing this at the remote viewing time. So what is that? This is, and when I say you, what do I mean? I mean you at the level of your consciousness, right? It's your awareness of what's going on. I mean, that's really all you have. Consciousness is, in fact, fundamental. I ran this line by Ed May, who we know is the materialist, and he just doesn't like it. He gets all upset. More power to him. You know, hey, I'm a physicist, and I'd love to look at all this stuff from the physical perspective, but let's recognize that in our personal lives, what is fundamental is our consciousness. Yeah, I have a desk in front of me and I'm knocking on it, but you know what? All I really know right now about this desk is I'm hearing it, I'm looking at it. All of that stuff is going through my consciousness. My life is one conscious moment after another. And precognition is just the beautiful example of how there's this thing which I think will make sense to you. You can call this precognitive telepathy, because back at remote viewing time, okay, you are very conscious of what's going on. You are developing a transcript. You are sharing information with yourself, a mind-to-mind telepathic communication with your consciousness in the future. But it's like a telepathy. It is a telepathy. It's mind to mind, but it happens to be, and this is so beautiful, it's between your mind back at remote viewing time and your conscious mind at feedback time. Wow. I mean, just really have to take that in. That is what is going on. And it is a precognitive, telepathic kind of communication. Um, that's what it is. And isn't that fun? I think the FUN here really does make sense. Okay, so precognitive telepathy, consciousness is fundamental to precognition. Oh yeah, I've used this graphic before and I really like it. This connection, we talk about it being positive, you want to make it healthy, all those good things. The ultimate one of those is love. And I did bring in the spirit of love, this idea of syntropy. And we've had Ulysses talk to us. And there's a entanglement strength here. What causes that? Uh, I think it's hard to come up with a better explanation than it's something like positive emotions would be just the right kind of thing you would like to bring into the mix here. Okay. Now, we're going through time, and I started bringing in just very little about quantum mechanics, non-locality, which is what allows you to connect up instantly with, we call it the future, but it's really right here, right now. That's what non-locality is all about. And this entanglement is what we've been talking about, that you can entangle with the future and experience it right now. And now quantum vacuum energy, 0 point energy, is not debated by quantum physicists. And I introduced it here, and I'll do it again because it's in the physical world. When you get very, very small, down to where you get into the atoms, and then you get into the quarks, and then you get smaller and smaller and smaller. Whether you're out in what you thought was a vacuum, where you'd say there was nothing, when you get down to the very small dimensions, even in a vacuum, or you go down into your own body, very, 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 very small, you get a quantum vacuum energy, a 0 point energy, which actually is quite intense. The intensities are at the level of when a nuclear explosion goes off. An H-bomb goes off, the hot, high energies that are right there is the base energy that we're all like sitting on. The reason you don't feel it is because it's uniform. It's uniform pretty much from out to the vacuum energy to you. It's a huge base energy, sort of like the fish down in the deepest part of the ocean. That pressure would crush you if you just went down there, but it's uniform all around him. It's uniform in his body, and all he does is wag his little tail, and he can move because it's changes in energy that matter. So we are sitting on enormous potential which allow us to do this kind of telepathy. And now it's that same energy that will allow us to do health. If your target were your future self in a healthy state or a healthier state, okay? You know, we do a lot of short-term precognition because it gets us feedback. That doesn't mean we don't occasionally do longer-term ones. And I think it's the same with health. But imagine now your target being you, your conscious self in the future, being even healthier than you are now, feeling better than you are now. That's your target. You go in with the intention to experience that, with the expectation that you will experience that. I even believe you can do sessions. You'll get information where your intention will be to get information from your healthier self. And whatever you get will be part of a transcript that you in fact can look at. Now, if you wanted to choose a specific time, you could. My sense right now is that it would be better for you to wait until in fact you feel healthier and better, and then bring out that transcript and do a session. Okay? This is, I don't know, I don't quite want to call it exploratory because I feel so strongly that this goes on, frankly, without knowing it. And there was a person at the expo that came up to me and he said, "This is amazing. I was given only 6 months to live, and I didn't want to do chemo and things like that. What I decided to do, because I wanted a quality of life, and I imagined that quality of life with my family. I imagine having sex with my wife. I imagine being with my kids, and it's 3 years now." So he's done it. And other people have talked about this. There's a group out there that called quantum leaping. And they say you're going to another universe and connecting up with another person. You know, the fact of the matter, and I have no faith at all in that model, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Notice what he's getting people to do. He's getting them to move to another state where they're feeling healthier, where you're feeling the way you want to feel, and making the assumption and expectation and essentially coming with the knowledge that it is out there. And then just as you create a transcript which you use during a future session, you now are creating a transcript connected to a healthier you. Getting into that mindset can make it happen. There you go. Now, again, how does this happen? Where does all that energy come from? And I'm going to tell you again, but let me connect it up to your nervous system. This happens to be a schematic of a neuron, a nerve cell in your body. Okay, here's the nucleus. These black lines are what are called microtubules. Now you can see these are real microtubules from electron microscopes or something. They are now small enough that you're able to get quantum effects in them. Long, thin, cylindrical kind of shapes actually can vibrate at quantum levels. And also notice there are even smaller connectors here that make it even easier to be quantum. I am convinced that we are living quantum beings. I believe the best evidence of that is not that scientists are talking that this can be quantum, it's precognition itself. The fact that we can do precognition says we're non-local. Regular computers can't do that. Quantum mechanics permits us to do that. So we are really marvelous creatures operating in a quantum world. And this gives us the ability, in fact, there's a guy out there at the University of Arizona, Hammersfield, God, I can't believe I forgot his name, but I think it's that, who talks about this being a computer-like system. But I believe it goes even deeper than that, because if you get smaller and smaller within any part of these microtubules, you eventually get down to this 0-point energy. And it's that 0-point energy that drives all of this. It's what drives the physical world, in my opinion. The non-physical world is where the precognitive connections, whether it be with telepathy, precognition, and health, okay, all of those sort of together is coming through this 0-point energy kind of field in a marvelous way that seems to be driven by things like intention, expectation. I don't know where all the programming started. I was just in a conversation today, so I guess that's why I'm bringing it up. We happen to have a hummingbird nest that now had 2 eggs, and there are 2 baby hummers there. And how did the hummingbird know to sit on those eggs? Going out now and feeding the babies, there's some sort of programming in the basic DNA that goes on. I almost think we just have to acknowledge that. They call that instincts. There's some sort of programming like that that goes on. But what seems to be marvelous about, maybe it's true of all animals, but I certainly know it's really true of human beings, we are able to be self-programmable. We do that all the time, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But I think what all of this is showing is that you can do it for the better. You can do precognition and you can do health for yourself. You can program your own future. Okay, well, I just gave examples. I'm not even going to go over these again. You know, I connected it here to the money, but my issue really, and the important thing which I want to emphasize here, and I also emphasized it there, was this sort of balance that in a way you can have it all. Consciousness is so fundamental, and precognition is sort of what opens up this connection with your future. And it does connect with health. It does connect with wealth. And I really believe it connects up with wisdom, because as you take all of this in more and more, I believe it does sort of automatically make you wiser. Okay. And then I talked about the conference. And, you know, Joe, Jeff, Dean, the only one that's not going to be there is Dean. John's a futurist. He's going to talk about the consciousness paradigm shift. So that'll be interesting to see what Jeff has to say and how it compares to what he has to say. And then we have other speakers. We're going to be doing, not only have all the great speakers, but we're going to be doing 2 actual predictions a day. The green are the predictions. So we'll be doing 8 total predictions, and we'll be set up in groups to try to keep it intimate with the group leader, very much like when we do livelies, but now it's in person. And our experience has been very very good with this. So my expectation is actually high that we'll do quite well. And that's it. So that's what I did there. And please talk to me. What did you think about all of this?
I got to tell you a story about this one.
Okay.
I got a good story for you. Now this was before I learned remote viewing or anything like that. But I was trying to lose weight. As you can see, I'm pretty chunky, and weight has always been a battle for me. So I decided when I came up to Nova Scotia, I had time to burn until I was able to work. I had to study my nursing, and I had to take a bunch of tests before I could enter the workforce here. Um, so I decided to really focus on losing weight. Well, we did something like a session. We actually used symbolism. Like I made myself a symbol, a disc, and I said, this represents that I'm losing weight, that my metabolism is increased, and I'm going to lose weight. Well, we started doing it, and you know what? It worked absolutely beautifully. I dropped that weight off like you wouldn't believe. I dropped off more weight than I'd ever dropped off before with any other diet. Well, the thing is watch the wording. I said, I want to increase my metabolism and lose weight. I didn't say anything about it being healthier. About 4 months after I did this, I ended up in emergency with a heart arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation. It turned out that I increased my metabolism to the point where it damaged my heart and caused my heart to develop an erratic beat. I had to go back and I had to undo everything that I had done. But no, it worked. I dropped off. Probably 40 or 50 pounds.
Be careful what you wish for.
When it's important. It's the moral to the story is when you mess with your health. Make sure that you're doing it in a balanced way. Don't focus on something really specific like that because it works extremely well.
Yeah, no, it's.
But if your metabolism, if you increase you increase your metabolism, your thyroid levels go up. It can cause serious problems, and in my case, it caused heart damage. It actually damaged my heart. I had problems with the arrhythmia afterwards, and then it damaged my thyroid. And now I have to take. I'm on a supplement for the rest of my life. So.
No, I get that, and what I would do, another word that we don't use too much here that we should is trust yourself. So say healthy and let kind of your deeper self define what that means. And I think you would agree with that. That would be kind of a better way to do it. So that's a good story. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Come on, any other comments?
Marty?
Yep. Hi, Crystal.
Hi. Yeah, I guess this is just a comment more than a question. Just that I appreciate what you're saying. When you had said it's going to be precognition for health, I thought we were going to be hearing about how to look in the future and sort of predict what health issues we're going to have, but it's a totally different angle on this. And, while I was younger, I was interested in creative visualization from Shakti Gawain, and there was the whole law of attraction thing that was popular with The Secret for a while. And I believed all that stuff worked because I'd seen it in my life, but I sort of didn't have any understanding of the mechanism of it. And I really like this idea of the quantum mechanics and the non-locality sort of being the reason that this actually works, because I like to know why. It's not always enough for me to know that something does work. I want to know why, so this is really putting a lot of pieces together for me, so I just wanted to thank you for taking this health perspective on it.
Okay, well, you're certainly welcome. And I have to tell you, as a physicist, I can't help it. I've always tried to get into the why as well. And this is as close as I've ever been able to get, and it feels feels just right. I mean, this 0 point energy, this vacuum energy idea, what could be kind of more fundamental as a connector between the physical world and the non-physical world? I don't know, it just feels really right. One other thing I want to say about health while you were talking, which gets me a lot, and that is what we've been talking about here. I really believe when we get to the other side with the paradigm shift, this is really for healthy people. You know, we always think of healing, and of course that's important. When a person is sick, that's when they want to get healthier. But I believe if this gets deep in you, you will sort of be making the connections automatically. You know, I believe meditation is really a great thing to do, but automatically it would almost come into your meditations because we all do intend to be healthier. And now if that expectation becomes part of you, I think we will automatically become healthier. And I think when we get into this other paradigm shift, that's going to be part of it. I believe we will just automatically be healthier human beings. Okay, any other comments? We've got two Lauries. Go ahead. Good, Laurie.
Hi, it's Lori Golden.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you had a model of how this could be done as a remote viewing session.
I do. I think you can. I think you can very consciously. You're going to have to turn off your speaker until I finish and then start up again. Okay. The image I have of it is this is not exactly a blind target like we're used to doing. I would say you make it a target where it is front-loaded in terms of, and you could even give it a coordinate number, but the target is you feeling healthier. As simple as that. Describe and sketch healthier me. And maybe not even say how I got there or any of that stuff. Then let your subconscious give you whatever it gives you. You get quiet, you look at yourself being in a healthier state, and you take whatever you get and you put it down on a transcript, 1 or 2 pages, and wait until you actually feel that. In other words, you're going to expect it to happen. You wait until you find a time when, oh, you know what, I really am feeling better. Now, maybe it'll be something specific. I think everybody needs to do this themselves. I am not going to take the point of view that I know everything about this. What I do know is that you're going to need to personalize this. Just like remote viewing ultimately becomes very personal. You know, people will give you protocols, some more specific than others, but even within those protocols, it's your personal consciousness and how you interact with that matters. And I think it's the same thing here. So I know that was a vague answer, but I don't know how to do any better than that right now. I hope that helps.
I just wanted to mention, Deborah Katz recommended the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and it's about healing by prayer. And so you repeat the prayer, let's say 20 minutes a day, 4 different periods of 5 minutes each. And it gets into your subconscious and you believe it. You know, just like an affirmation. And it's towards health. It could be also Martian. So I just wanted to put that in there and kind of, it's along the same line.
Well, no, it's exactly the same line. I think prayer the only little difference with prayer, but it fits in here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Turn off your mic. The feedback. Yeah. I think prayer fits in here exactly. With one little different thing. Usually you're praying for something specific rather than health in general. And this obviously can work for that. If you have some specific ailment, prayer, I have no problem with that word. Your tasking would be to improve a certain condition, heal a certain condition, and expect that. See, the idea of intending it to happen and then getting into a place where you expect it to happen is what would bring up this energy from this non-physical field through the 0 point energy up into your body. And so I think prayer would work. It's just a different word, but it's very much the same thing. Also distant prayer, and they've done experiments on this. Telepathy is usually between two different minds, and we could talk about that, but I mean the extensions are sort of obvious, but what I believe is most important, and what I actually believe is going to be at the core of the paradigm shift, is self-healing, being healthy, staying healthy, being wise personally, making wise choices, becoming wealthy in the deepest sense of that word, which includes sharing wealth, just because that makes you healthier mentally. And so anyway, I'm totally in tune with the idea of prayer here.
Could I make a suggestion that might help?
Sure.
One thing that is very commonly used is there, in the process of becoming healthier. Now, I'm not saying I would suggest doing the session, but as the time progresses, you have a time limit. You're gonna do the session for such and such, just like your feedback is at a specific time, so the session needs to be for a specific time, then you need to do another session, et cetera, et cetera. But what I found to be very effective is symbolism. Now, I used what's called a talisman. There's nothing more to it than it's just a subconscious symbol saying that this object represents me being healthier. This is a reminder of that communication that I had. You can use anything you want for that. People use things from as simple as using a pendulum to something as complex as gold seals with gems in them. And yes, people do that. Mm-hmm. There's a guy out in west of Vancouver, and he used to live in Las Vegas, and oh my goodness, you should see the gold seals that he used to make for this kind of thing. And they were made of gold with inlaid in gems. He was a jeweler. He was a gemologist.
Okay.
Yeah, so he used to make really a lot. Anyway, the use of symbols is oftentimes very helpful. People use, like, they say they're doing pendulum healing, but what it is just basically a symbol of that subconscious communication that reminds you of that session, so that you're constantly keeping that entanglement going as you go further and further towards that goal. So anyways, that's one thing that I know some people have found helpful. I used it for my little less than perfect session, and I found it to be very effective as well.
Yeah, I think, I have no problem with that. All these things just sort of anchor this expectation too. Notice the way you were talking. You felt it would help. You expect it to happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
And physical things like that work. That's terrific. It's getting into that mindset.
And the more you believe in it, the more you believe in it, the better it works. Like if you're somebody that believes that crystals can help you, crystals can store energy and release it in a certain way, then that would be really, really good for you.
Right.
I'm not the kind of person that would that would do well with crystals. I would deal more with like an abstract seal on a piece of wood or something like that. That's more my thing. Everybody's different.
And that's the point. Everybody needs to get comfortable and actually grow their technique over time by learning, feeling better about it, getting the expectation levels higher and higher. And I believe this is something which can go on for your entire life and get better and better. Okay, any other comments? Yep.
I do, Marty. Actually, I wanted to bring in the idea of queuing, making, building blind queues that you could slip into your target pool for health reasons. And I'm actually taking this from a book that was published recently called Technical Remote Viewing, the Complete Guide. The folks in technical remote viewing, whether you agree with the politics or not, I've had a lot of experience with them, and they have turned queuing into a skill unto itself, along with analysis and along with just the remote viewing. So what Brett Stewart has to say here on page 79, it really is a talk about how to build a queue. And this one is specifically for a disease. And you would actually put the person's name and say John Doe, and then / in this case would be leukemia, and then / optimum presently available treatment. Or you could say John Doe / leukemia / optimum presently available cure. The difference between cure and treatment is, I mean, a cure could take years to develop, but if you want your patient to be comfortable, you would actually look for the treatment first, their optimum available treatment. So that would be a blind queue that you would use. And for general health, and this is good too, the idea of trajectories, your path, your best path, optimum trajectories. You could use this for health too. You can go name, and in this case we're using John Doe, name / optimum health trajectory. And this should give you an idea of what you should be doing to make yourself healthier. You may be surprised what the matrix has to return to you. I've heard anecdotal stories about how this sort of stuff works. In one case, a lady was very sick. Her husband had tasked viewers, and the viewers came up with this little tin, like a little, metal tin with these little round things in it. They thought it was some sort of pill. They had to find out where this pill was, and through a series of other remote viewings, they found that in their medicine cabinet were her birth control pills, and they were killing her, and the doctors had missed it. In another case, just a basic optimum health trajectory type viewing that I heard that somebody had done, they had kept drawing pictures of their heart. Nothing but their heart ever came up, even when these were blind. And what it turned into is that his subconscious was lecturing him to go to the doctor and have his heart checked out. And sure enough, he had to have bypass surgery, and he became much better after that and lived on for a very long time since then. I haven't heard in years about his health since that point, but I'm aware of that case.
Okay, those are, yeah.
So in this case, I'm sorry, Marty, go ahead.
No, go ahead. If you're going to finish, I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to close it up. Basically, all I wanted to do was bring up the fact that I really like what you do, Marty, as far as how you bring sort of a spirituality to remote viewing, sort of an inner process. You bring that out through your webinars and things like that. It's really very refreshing to see and listen to, especially from a hard scientist. Hearing that stuff come out of you is very surprising to me, and it's awesome. And then in some cases, I mean, in other schools of thought, when you get your pen on the paper and just work, there's ways to just cue specifically what you want, and I would give for everybody should do their own optimum trajectory, I would think. And that would be it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's sort of classical remote viewing connected to health, which is very close to this. The one thing which we're doing here, which changes the emphasis just a little, is, but maybe in an important way, is you go in with the sense that your wiser, future, healthier self is what you're connecting with rather than the vague matrix. It's of course going through the matrix, but just more and more with the work with precognition, I'm becoming, for me, I believe the best explanation is the matrix is sort of like an ether. All the information is out there, but how do I get the specific information I want, and where does it come from? And it ultimately comes from me, because who's the person that's going to be healthier? Who's the person that's going to know the future information? It's this kind of telepathic, precognitive health. It comes through my personal consciousness, or I never get it. And so why not have that as part of your mindset? Now, I'm not sure that contradicts your cue at all. Maybe you know, it's implicit in there. It's my personal trajectory that I will experience, or but anyway, it's just it's kind of a little bit of a different flavor.
Yeah.
But
You tend to
nevertheless,
bring more of a holistic approach to it.
Yeah, they're very close. Okay, anybody else? Why doesn't Lori Kazan, you there? Okay, or yeah, Lori Golden. Go ahead if you have something to shoot.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to mention that I did set up some sessions for myself because I wanted to find out if I was allergic to supplements. And it turned out that I was allergic to the supplements, and the sessions were correct. So I just set it up myself fine. I wanted to mention that.
Okay,
kind of
that's cool.
That
yeah, that's cool. And I acknowledge this kind of information is out there. Period. There's really nothing new here, except it's a mindset, and connecting it now, I think, with health can become very powerful. People are just doing it in different ways, but in this group, the people that are mostly going to be listening to this are into precognition and know, what you need to do, of course, is get this deep in your gut, and first getting precognition with targets like we do for our sports events, the photosite targets. That helps you get it deep in your gut that this precognition is real, that you're non-local, that you've got all this potential. And then I think it becomes natural to just extend this to the health area, which hopefully will, be a great benefit to everybody.
Are you aware of the experiment done by a theosophist by the name of Ledbetter on psychic perception of the elements?
No.
Of the oh, you should read that. That's very, very interesting.
Why don't you send me? Go ahead, send me the link. Yeah.
Hang on, I'll get it for you. I've got another link at the bottom there. It's additional. It's a book of hypnosis suggestions, but it's also good for doing remote viewing cueing as well.
And this went to everybody, so anybody who wants to can click on these and get them now, right?
Better, let's see, of course.
Willing to incorporate, at least entertain a spiritual. Crystal, your response, I just reading this when I'm looking for this, but I don't only entertain it. Bottom line, I tend not to say it because it does turn some people off, but bottom line, there's no question in my mind, this is all spiritual. When I say consciousness is fundamental, consciousness is the essence of spirituality. Spirituality is the essence of consciousness. Just because it's the most fundamental you can get. We are one. What goes on at this non-physical level is non-local. It connects everything. What's more spiritual than the concept of we are one? So.
don't let the nature off. It's a very interesting remote viewing. It's a remote viewing session before they really developed any kind of protocol. This is a based on Eastern mysticism.
Yep. Yeah, the Eastern mystics, though there are plenty of other mystics, you know, the Christian mystics, the Kabbalah, Jewish mystics, I get the Muslims, the Sunnis, are those the Muslim mystics?
I
All
think he
the
was one
sect.
of Blavatsky's students. I'm not sure.
Occult chemistry. Yeah, okay, I'm looking at it now. Well, I
Yeah,
guess you
and if
guys
you
can
take
see my screen too. Yeah. Well, I will tell you the likelihood of my reading this is small, but the idea comes across just simply in the
just
title.
read one section, just read one chapter of it, and you'll get the idea. You
Yeah,
don't have to read all of it. Yeah,
I
it's
think
quite
that's right.
long.
I think that's
But
right.
just one element is, and it's a interesting. It comes up very
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
I haven't seen anybody turn lead into gold yet, though, and on a massive scale. Though I will tell you something very strange, and of course I don't know this, but what's been called cold fusion, I think there may be a connection with the zero-point energy field, of course, because it's cold fusion in our world, but there may be some connections with consciousness in there, because it's almost like an experimenter effect. Some people seem to get it and other people don't. And anyway, I'm on the lookout to see if somebody's going to make that connection. Why will some people doing what is supposedly the exact same, quote, protocol, physics protocol, get success and others don't? So I think that's really all very interesting. Okay, other comments? Do you know anything to add? Other angles on this? You know, this is going to be, other people will be listening to it. So on this general subject, if you have anything that you'd like to say, now's a good time. Or we can end it.
Actually, this is on the subject of health and all of it. I'm working with a woman who actually has a computer program that has accurately diagnosed and then treated some of my issues. And she's not a medical person. She was just trained in the use of this computer that supposedly uses quantum mechanical
Radionics.
Okay.
and this is like blows my mind, but I have had actual changes in my physiology and my medical issues. So I don't understand how a computer could do that, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, very interesting. Is there a name of the technique?
I could post in here what this woman's name is. I don't know what the actual, like, the program is or whatever. Apparently it's big in Europe. But I could post just, like, her website if anybody wants to look at it and make their own determination, of course.
See, I would ask.
Is it called radionics, Jenny? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, say that again. What was?
It's either radionics or it's a branch of it.
Oh, radionics.
Yeah, it was started up in it was a way long time ago, about the 1920s, I think it was. It started to become popular about then, and it fits the description. It's just maybe a variation of that.
You see, and let me just tell you that, and I don't know if this is true, and the fact that you're feeling comfortable with it, and it's, I guess you said it's having changes, I presume positive changes, but you might think for a moment that going there and they get you in a positive expectational mood for it. And so ultimately it's you and your body that's doing the curing, correct?
I can't argue with that.
No, it's like healers, and most healers will actually tell you that. All they're doing is activating your own personal healing capabilities. I mean, you know, you've got 1 trillion of these nerve cells in you. You're a pretty complex being. And but if it's helping to activate it, terrific. Even stronger would be for you to build up a confidence that you can activate it yourself.
I'm working on that too.
Super. But that is the philosophy that at least I'm putting out there. Okay.
Yeah, I would say I like your philosophy, Marty, definitely. There's a couple ways at this. I mean, if you want to look at it two ways, we are experiencing our health beforehand, the way that you're describing it, or through remote viewing, you can actually report without an emotional connection to it. You can report on your health that way. So there's a couple of different ways to get diagnosis and to help oneself. And I do believe in prayer. Prayer is probably the only widely accepted form of remote influencing around. And that really is what it is, remote influencing. And that's what you're talking about, is remotely influencing your health from the past into the future, right?
Absolutely. And another part of this is that you are going through this non-physical. You are forced to acknowledge, which is what's so beautiful about prayer, because it does it automatically. You are acknowledging this other plane, a spiritual plane, if you will. You know, prayer, people use the word God, whatever word you want to use, it's something kind of bigger than yourself. When you're doing precognition, whether it's for health, for describing a photo target, for doing something like that, the very fact that you're seeing yourself as being non-local, going through a spiritual field, a non-physical field, you have to have this sense of something bigger than just you going on to make all this happen.
You should, or you should, or you're doing it wrong. That's for sure.
Well,
If it doesn't change you, then you're probably not experiencing it correctly.
Yeah. Very good. Why don't we end it here, unless there's more? And I thank you all. I thank you all for coming. And let me just turn off the recording here now.